Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we're talking to a research analyst specialist for the largest sex offender civil commitment program in her county of St. Paul, Minnesota. This athlete is also a posing coach and a lifestyle coach who helps her clients to learn about their body and proper nutrition so that they can lead a balanced life without relying on a coach. She competed for the first time in June of 2017, where she took home overall in both novice and open division. She earned her pro card in 2018 in Miami, which was her third national show and fourth show altogether. And right before making her pro debut, her show was canceled, like many people out there. So we're going to be getting into lots of incredible topics today. Let's welcome to the show, Reijuana Harley. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm awesome and so happy you're here. And I know you listen to the show, so I'm going to ask you that question. What is one thing you do or a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage?
So what I will say is from my first 3 shows to that last one, this changed so much. So for my very first show, I just remember having no idea what was going on. Like the people backstage are really good about, telling you where you need to be, when you need to be there. But I just remember being so frazzled. I was so frazzled and didn't know what I was doing that I forgot my jewelry actually.
Oh no.
Because I was running around and I left them in my jacket pocket and I forgot to put them back on. And yeah, so that was a mess. My other 2 shows, I just remember being so nervous. And I wasn't talking to anybody. I was just standing there, like going over my routine over and over in my head. And then fast forward to Miami, I was like dancing backstage with everyone, just like having a good time, reflecting back on my prep. I just kept telling myself, like, you did every single thing you could do. There's no point stressing about it now. And I've never felt so comfortable up on stage.
And it paid off.
It definitely did.
So I'm actually curious because you had done so well at your first show and then you went on to only competing at national shows.
Yeah, so after that first show, I wanted to go into the national show right away, but I was just getting ready to graduate and everything. And so I took actually about 8 months off before I started prep for a national show.
Okay, and I definitely want to talk to you about that because I know you were prepping for your pro card. I'm just prepping in general while you were in graduate school. And what did you study for in your undergrad, and then what did you get your master's in?
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's in psychology with a minor in human resources management, and then I got my master's degree in industrial organizational psychology.
Oh my gosh,
Which is kind of, I tell
awesome.
people it's like business HR psychology.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. I had to take one of those classes for my psychology undergrad, and I was like, ooh, if I wasn't so interested in eating disorders and body image and other, self-affect related issues, I would definitely go into industrial and organizational psychology. So I think that's really cool.
And the funny thing is when I took like the introduction to psychology class as a freshman, I was like, wow, that sounds awful. Like who wants to do, heavy statistics and like business in psychology? Because I was really into clinical back then. And then fast forward to like my junior year of undergrad, I'm like, okay, this is actually what I'm going to do now.
Oh my gosh. No, that's the thing, the statistics and the statistics in general. I am not a fan. I am horrible at it. Maybe that's a belief I've taken on, but I'm definitely, it's not my strong suit anyway. But what then led you to actually getting into what you're doing?
Well, when I was an undergrad, I went to a hospital basically, and I was doing research for them as an intern, my junior year of undergrad. And so I really got into research, and I never liked statistics either. I really actually hated math with a burning passion. But I found that I actually really enjoyed it when it was applied to something in the real world. So with stats, when you're working with these numbers and you're looking at, different subpopulations, and I liked that the numbers, they meant something to me, and that made me enjoy them a whole lot more. And so I just loved research, and I had I did 3 research internships between undergrad and
Wow.
grad school, and I worked at the university doing research. And so, surprise, surprise, that I went into research.
And now you're doing research in a very interesting field. So what got you into that job role or that position specifically?
Well, I never thought I would be doing something like this. I actually studied leadership development, was kind of like what I focused on when I was in grad school. I actually worked with executives of organizations around my area, and I would teach leadership development skills. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do, but I also wanted to go into research. I was going back and forth between both. So I was really applying to both type of jobs. And when this job came up, it was in my area. It was a government job, which is always something, that a lot of people look for straight out of grad school, just because it's a great thing to have on your resume and just have for experience in general. And the population intrigued me because I knew nothing about it, and I had never heard of a civil commitment program before. And so when I saw the job and I did research, I really saw that, first of all, there's no other program in the entire world that does as much comprehensive research as we do. And that alone, I was like, wow, I want to be a part of something like this. And I loved abnormal psychology when I was in undergrad. And so this position kind of brought me back into that, because we talk a lot about mental health with our clients.
Who would you say your clients are?
Well, we refer to them as clients because these gentlemen, they already did their prison sentences, and basically the state decides that they're too dangerous to be released back into the public, so they get civilly committed indefinitely. But we refer to them as clients because this is actually, technically it's a treatment program, even though they're not there willingly. So we just refer to them as clients.
Okay, wow, this is so interesting to me because you're opening my brain up to a whole world I didn't know existed. So they're civilly committed indefinitely, but it's treatment. So do you mind, and please don't take this the wrong way, but I'm curious, what does it mean to put someone through a treatment if there's no intention or belief that this person would ever be recovered enough to enter society?
Yes, this is a difficult thing when I tell people what I do, especially because I will just put it out there that I don't believe in full recovery either. Not at all. What it really is, the goal and the mission of our program isn't, this full recovery. We think they're going to become completely different people, yada, yada, because that's just, and realistically, that's not going to happen. These aren't low-level offenders. These are serial, extremely dangerous individuals. So really what we're trying to do is prevention. So how can we make it so eventually, if they get out, because a very large majority never will, how do we just make it so they have these tools so they can prevent things from happening? Not that they're going to be, fixed by any means.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because it's just almost like a what's that called? When something contradicts itself, like you're being put through treatment in recovery or whatever, but there isn't actually a belief that would happen. However, a proactive approach, and I think that that's really cool, actually, and the prevention of it. But it sounds like you work with some. It doesn't sound like it. You do work with very an intense population. So how has that played a role on your mentality or maybe your emotional state day to day, if any toll at all?
Well, I'm kind of a behind the scenes person. So I actually don't work in the facilities at all. I work in like our central office government building. So I've only been there once to tour the facility when I first started, but I never have interaction with the clients themselves. I see all the data that we collect and do different projects that involve just analyzing their data so we can come up with different treatment models and make sure that what we're using is the most effective, up-to-date methods. But then also I do program evaluation for the program itself to make sure that they're following all the legislative guidelines and everything like that. But, there's quite a few projects that I work on where I have to read court cases that are 200 pages long that go into detail of every single victim and all the events. And
Wow.
let me tell you, there's been plenty of days where I go up to my boss and I'd be like, this thing's really affected me. I'm going to go home. And they're like, okay, well, we'll see you tomorrow. Let me know, how everything goes later tonight. So they understand that, this is a very emotionally draining position. And so they're very, they have all the resources available for us if we need them to get to kind of work through that and be able to work with and, do with what we do.
Absolutely. That makes sense. And I appreciate that you do that work as well, because there is so much that goes on behind the scenes that is so necessary and important to actually improve those efforts or to make a bigger difference. And I think it's really cool that you do that. And also that you're able to stand up and say when you need to take a break or when you need to take some like me time and reset for yourself, because I feel like that would be like a challenging part of a helping profession, I think, is sometimes stepping back and going, I need to help myself. And was bodybuilding already part of your life when you, actually, I know it was, but was bodybuilding something you had considered when you were in your undergrad?
No, I actually didn't even think about competing until I was going into my senior year of undergrad.
Okay. And when you were actually in prep for multiple competitions, you were balancing a few different jobs, right, on top of your studies?
Yes. So in particular, so for my first year, I was halfway through my senior year when I started prep. So then the last half of prep, I was summer break, so I wasn't doing too much besides just working a part-time job. But when I was in grad school and prepping for, USA and Miami, I was working a full-time job during the day. And then I had an overnight job, a sleep overnight job I was working. I had an internship. It was a remote internship, so I just did that from home. And then I also had a research position on campus. So I was very busy.
Oh my gosh, what did a normal day look like for you?
Well, it kind of depends. So with my overnight job, I would work for a week on and then I would have a week off. Thank God it was a sleep job, otherwise I never would have been able to make that work. But I would go in from 10 p.m., leave by 8 a.m., go straight from there to class. Luckily in grad school, I only had 3 classes, so it would only take about 3 hours of my time. I would go to my research position. I would, then usually I would go to my other job or go to the gym, depending on the day. And then I would go and do internship work and things like that before I had to go back to my overnight job.
And what inspired you to take on so many roles?
Well, with my internship, you had to have an internship in order to graduate. So it was either I do a thesis, and surprise, surprise, I decided to do both. So I did both of those two. And then the research position on campus, when you work on campus, it would help pay for my school. And then also you would get a stipend. So it's just like having another job, but also just having that, getting that research experience. And then, working my other jobs, I just didn't have a choice. Competing is expensive, have a lot of student loans, have a lot of bills. So, I had to make it work. If I wanted to compete, I had to put in the work.
Yep, totally. And I totally admire your commitment to your education and to your development. And would you say that that's all paid off as you've been, what is it, like a year post graduation now, or?
Yep, now it's been a year. Holy crap. I would definitely say it paid off. It was a long journey in the beginning because when I graduated in May, I didn't start this job until October. So I basically spent my entire summer applying to jobs, flying to interviews all over the country. And, a lot of times with these jobs too, it's like you go through 6, 7, 8 interviews. They're super intense. And, you're not just interviewing in person, you're doing like full on projects that you have to submit for these interviews and give presentations on them. And so it was a really stressful summer, which is another reason why I decided to take a complete year off after going pro before I prepped again.
Totally. No, it makes sense, especially because you had invested so much time and energy and effort into your studies and into your work. It would have been senseless not to have honored that investment you had made and really commit to 8 months of getting that job that you really wanted so that you could step into this new life, I imagine. And did you end up having to move?
No, I mean, I moved, but I'm still, within an hour from home. But me and my boyfriend just got a place, 10 minutes from my work, just so we would be
Oh,
closer.
nice. That's
Hmm.
awesome. Well, congrats.
Well, thank you.
Of course. And, I'm getting my master's degree right now, and something that I have thought a lot about, and I'm really selfishly going to ask you this. So like part of me, I personally, like, I love having a busy schedule. I love keeping things regimented. And I think having a lot to balance allows me to do that. You really have no choice but to be focused when you're on prep and you're working like a business and you're doing your job and you're in school. So I have a little bit of nervousness about actually managing my internship with my business and competing, but you made it work. You made all of these different positions work. So, what were some things you did for your time or even stress management to help you?
I'm definitely like you. I function better when my schedule is, scheduled by the half hour and everything I do is like on the dot. Like I stuck to my plan so consistently because I knew that if I didn't, something was going to be off, something wouldn't get done, and that's just going to create so much stress and anxiety. So I knew how important it
Yes.
was. I could be in the gym, be like, okay, I have from this time to this time to get my workout done. You're going to get in there and you're going to grind, because when that time comes, you have to stop. Doesn't matter if you're not done with your workout, that is the time you have. And so I always prepared for something bad to happen, basically. So, being overly prepared and be like, okay, in case, so like one of my jobs when I was working those overnights was at a group home. And so things happen sometimes. Like what if their van in the morning showed up late and I can't leave until that van comes? I don't have a choice. So being prepared for things like that really made it so when they did happen, I was like, well, I got my backup plan.
That's awesome. I think that that's so smart. And that's actually true and applicable in anything that anybody does. Like, always be mindful of what possible scenarios could come up, because we both know that if you mentally prepare yourself for the challenge, then when the challenge arises, you'll be more capable of facing it because you'll have prepared yourself for it.
Exactly. Same as what I tell you, bring an extra pair of shoes and jewelry and a suit to your shows, because last thing you want is to go through all that work and to have, one little snag or something break or something happen and just throw it all out the window.
Yes, 100%. Like, even if you're a first time competitor, I think it's important to have like an extra pair of shoes and have an extra bikini, even if the bikini isn't like as blinged out, or maybe it's just like uh you bought it and it becomes like a spare bikini and it's a secondary one. I think it's important to have it because all your other investments really add up, and it's important to almost have like insurance, right?
Always. It's just a good feeling too, knowing that that's there just in case.
Yes, it is. And what if your tan looks different, or, your coach says, "Oh, actually, I think that would be better on you today." Like, it's good to have options.
Definitely. It's just a way to make yourself feel better overall.
Yes. And I appreciate you sharing your insight too about going through school and managing those positions. I have so much respect for you, and I'm inspired by you knowing that you were able to do that. And I think that bodybuilding works seamlessly into lifestyles like that. A lot of people who are into bodybuilding naturally are more regimented or thrive off of that more so. But how did you prevent or maybe stay on top of the stress so that because even if you don't feel the stress, it can still show up on your body, or it can still show up without us, being overly sensitive to it. So what did you do to manage that so that you didn't wear it on stage?
I mean, I feel like we all go through periods in prep where we get super overwhelmed with everything. And for me, my biggest thing was learning how to say no. Because I mean, I never went through a prep where I just stopped hanging out with my friends or stopped doing other things outside of prep. I mean, I definitely cut back on those things just because I don't have as much time, but I never completely cut them out. But I definitely had to learn how to say no to things. And even, for me, especially when you're in grad school, like everything you do is some massive group project that you spend, months working on. And so for me, I wanted to always like do everything and be a part of everything, and learning to like, oh, this is what I can manage. This is what I can handle, and being able to understand your limits. And that was probably the biggest mental change I had to go through between balancing everything between prep and work and just life in general, was figuring out where are my limits and what am I actually able to manage. And it's not easy.
No, it's not. And like, honestly, I just had a conversation with my coach the other day. And when this episode comes out, it would not have been the other day, but hopefully I'll have improved on this in the meantime. But just the other day, like we were talking about how there's some people who naturally, like their natural state of being is like work really, really hard and go the extra mile and say yes and push themselves and push through everything. And those are the types of people who actually need to be told or guided to take a step back, take a chill pill, learn what your, boundaries need to be, etc. And so for people like us, it can be really easy to just say, oh, I'm just going to keep working hard and keep going at it. I'm going to do everything I can. So yeah, shining light on those limits kind of sucks, because you realize, okay, actually, if I don't shine light on those limits, or if I don't take a step back, if I don't set a healthy boundary, then I'm limiting my potential for success and therefore creating a result I was trying to avoid the whole time.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And then too, when you have like downtime, sometimes I need to like stop filling my plate back up, because like when I wasn't in prep when I started my new job. And so I started this new job, we moved here and everything. And then I just find myself wanting to take on all this new stuff. And I'm like, okay, you need to chill. Downtime is okay. Like you don't have to be crazy busy all the time, because in life, things just go up and down. Sometimes you're crazy busy and you're just constantly doing something. And then you have these like calm down periods. And I had to I really had to learn that when I'm in those down periods, to enjoy it and to know that it's always going to come back up, because that's just how life goes.
Yes, it's so funny. I'm very similar to you in that, like, when I really need downtime, I'm like, oof, I know I haven't been embracing it when it's come, because now I'm in this state of mind where I'm like, I need it. I have to have it. Whereas if I had just like periodically allowed for it, or when the space was created and honored that as like an opportunity to just relax, I wouldn't be then craving it so much later. It wouldn't have felt so limited as a resource. And so I like that you share how you were able to really honor like the ebbs and flows of life and go, okay, it's okay to just relax.
Exactly. Even when I decided to start my business, I set limits for myself right away. And I was like, this is what you are going to allow yourself to manage. And I'm going to do that for at least a year before I expand that, because I knew that what I was going to do was I was going to pile all this on my plate, and then prep was going to start. And then, different things were going to pop up between, I don't know, things that always just happen to pop up, and I knew like I was going to end up in a place being overwhelmed and just stressed out.
Oh my gosh. Literally the other day I journaled. I was like, something I learned today was that no matter what, I'll always find something to do. And because of that, I have to be extra vigilant in knowing that the world doesn't end when there isn't something to do. Do Do you know what I mean? Where it's like,
Exactly.
you know what I'm referring to. It's kind of like, just because your schedule's empty or because you're moving slower than maybe you're used to or you think you're expected to, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
Exactly.
So,
And also being able to ignore, sometimes I feel like pressured by social media and things like that, that I need to be doing more. Or like I'm always watching these different YouTube videos and speakers, and they're like, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that, and then you never feel like you're doing enough. And then sometimes it's just, you let it get in your head, and you have to realize that it's okay to not constantly be, cranking out all this crazy stuff all the time. It's okay to have downtime and to, you know, sit and binge watch Netflix.
yes, we're living in the age of the hustle mentality, where everyone has
Absolutely.
a side hustle or 4 jobs, or they are building a business, or they're making money somehow. It's the hustle mentality, and it's being promoted over and over again. But you know what? I have come to terms with the fact that I don't need to watch videos like that telling me to do so much, because I don't have time for it. I don't have time for it. So that's kind of how I've convinced myself out of it, is like, I recognize that those videos are made for the people who literally are not getting themselves out of bed and doing what needs to be done. And there are going to be days where you can't get out of bed. You don't know what you need to do to get done. And you have to do certain things, but the world's not going to end when you don't. And so that's allowed me to reflect and go, on those days, it's okay to relax and take a step back. And in fact, it'd probably end up propelling you forward, rather than going like, well, I suck because I want to watch Netflix today. Instead going, I'm doing myself a big favor by watching Netflix today, because it's going to set me up for even greater motivation or energy for tomorrow. And not getting into that, I guess, overgeneralization type of mindset, or that all or nothing mentality.
I could not agree more.
I love this conversation. We're just like, yeah,
Me
yeah.
too.
Well, okay, so you did launch your business, and you do posing coaching, you do lifestyle coaching, and I had mentioned that earlier, and I'm excited to talk to you about your experiences with that. But what does a normal day look like for you, since you are doing that now?
Well, right now, obviously, posing, there's not too much, just because most of my posing clients I do in person. I probably only do like 30% maybe ish online or so. Um, I do mostly, well, to start, Minnesota does not have a big bodybuilding community compared to everywhere else. So, like, even getting a posing coach, there's four bikini pros in Minnesota.
Wow.
And that's it. So, yeah. And so, like, and a lot of them, 2 of them don't even teach posing. So I have a lot of Minnesota clients here locally. I finally have been able to just start doing in person again. But usually I do, I try to schedule them like closer together. So I'll have like one day during the weekday where I pose clients, and then I'll do like weekend clients. But I try not to, try to cram a bunch of people, after I get off work, and I still have to train, I still have to do cardio. So again, knowing like my limits.
Yeah, and like, I know you've referenced it before, but that's like your me time. You said in posts is like your bodybuilding and your commitment to your goals is your commitment.
I look forward to so much, like getting off work, running home and change, get some food, go to the gym, just put my headphones in, and for like 2 hours, just being in my own space.
Yeah, and then that allows you to be a better coach too.
Definitely. And when you need to make time, not just for, going to the gym, doing that physical, but having that mental time too. And for me, like, I spend a good chunk of my workout just like stretching and foam rolling. And I usually will like do it in a dark corner somewhere where I can just be in my head and just like thinking and reflecting while I'm doing that kind of stuff.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Seriously. And that's actually a big reason why I'm loving working out from home right now, because nobody can bother me. I'm getting in my zone completely. I'm not worried about Joe Schmo coming up to me and saying whatever, that I'm like, okay, I care about the people in my gym. I love them. But like, sometimes you just need your space. And I feel like working out from home has given me that opportunity to do that. And sometimes that's one of those things you have to be prepared for, right? One of those potential roadblocks in your time schedule.
Yeah, and I always feel bad because there's definitely times where I am more crunched and people will come up and talk and I kind of have to do the like, I'm sorry, but I only have this much time. Like, I gotta get going, and I always feel so bad when I have to do that. But yeah, I mean,
know.
I have no problem being social in the gym, but at the same time, like I'm there to work and to do some.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, okay, so in your posing coaching and in your lifestyle coaching, let's talk specifically about your lifestyle coaching. I know you said you really love helping people to develop a lifestyle for themselves outside of needing a coach. And you had struggled a lot yourself with living a balanced lifestyle before you got into competing. And you had spent 3 years of your life living for partying, drinking, drugs, and you actually had a wake up call after being drugged at a bar and having none of your friends looking out for you or even reaching out to check on you, which made you go, okay, I want to change my life. So can you give us some more insight into the contrast between your life then and your life now, and like what that commitment to change looked like for you?
Yeah, that was a real like punch in the gut moment. And the thing was, like, there was things that had happened before that where I should have thought, like, what am I doing? Like, is this really what I want to be doing? And I think I was able to talk myself into things were fine because, I was in school while I was doing all that, but I was getting straight A's. I was a collegiate cheerleader. I was captain of the cheer team. I
Wow.
was still going to the gym 5, 6 days a week. Like, those things made me think that everything else was okay
Mm.
when really it was just building up for a giant crash. And I mean, basically, even I feel like everybody has at one point in their life had a group of friends that was like, they're not people you would really spill your guts out to or like trust to talk around things. They're people you partied with and things like that. And you think they're like your really close friends and then your best friends and you're gonna, be friends forever. And then you realize that they're not really there for you. And I got myself into a situation, where that I realized that was the case. That, I was just a fun person to hang out with the group. We weren't really that close at all. And, that situation happened. And when it happened, I was actually really close to when I was going away for my research internship. So I was going to be moving away for the summer. And so I actually, all at the same time, so that happened, stopped hanging out with that group of people. And I got out of an abusive relationship, moved away from the summer. And when I was gone, I was like, you know what? Things are going to be different now. So I was already going to the gym, but I started doing research. I wasn't working with a coach at the time, so it was just me. So I did a lot more research on, health and nutrition, because at this point, the only nutritional advice I was getting was the bros at the gym telling me to bulk and to, eat as much as I can all the time. So I had no idea how, a woman should be training and eating and things like that. So I really dove into that. I started tracking macros. So that was the first time I started tracking macros my junior year of undergrad. And actually where I was, there was a lot of bodybuilders there and people were constantly asking me if I competed. And I was watching YouTube videos. I was watching like Heidi Sommers and I was watching Amanda Latona and like YouTube videos like that. And so I started really getting into it. And that's when I started thinking about competing. I was like, I have this new hobby. I'm really into it. Let's take it to the next level. And the nice thing was I had that new, not obsession, but I had that new hobby and I was really into it. And so when I came back to the university, it kind of helped me stay clear of those things I was trying to get away from.
Oh, mm-hmm. So it really actually transformed your lifestyle as a whole. It took up the space that was previously filled by the habits you didn't want anymore.
Yeah, I was still doing other things. Like when I came back too, I ended up getting a job at a nutrition store. And so I was surrounded with other people who were really into that. I stayed busy with cheerleading, and I was applying to grad schools at the time. And so, I just tried to switch who I was hanging around with and the things that I found important.
And you mentioned you were in an abusive relationship. So do you mind talking a little bit about that and how you got out of it?
Well, I mean, it was a long time coming. It was just one of those things where I needed something to like push me to it. The whole time I knew it was wrong. I knew I didn't want to be in that relationship, but it was like I had no idea why I felt so compelled to stay. No idea. And to this day, I still don't know. I look back and I just ask myself why, because there was nothing holding me there whatsoever. You always hear about people, they always play the guilt trip and things like that. So that definitely played a part of it. But then when I was leaving for the summer, I used that as like okay, this is it. Like, this is your chance right now.
And was that empowering for you?
It was definitely scary at first. It was lonely, and but I did. It's not like I didn't have anybody at that point. Like, I stopped hanging out with that group of people, but I still had a handful of really close friends, and I have family, and so I reached out to those type of people who were really there for me. And for a long time, they were trying to get me out of that situation. And so when it finally happened, they were so happy and so there for me that it just made it that much easier.
Totally. Yeah, it's amazing that, there's people in our life who have that unconditional love for us. And it's awesome when we make those decisions for ourselves that we know we can lean on them. Like, those are the true people, like the true people we can rely on. And you had mentioned too that you didn't know anything really about nutrition for females or training as a female, even though you were in the gym a lot and you were captain of that's incredible. The fact that you were captain of cheer team collegiately, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. So now I'm wondering, like, what was the difference in the training that you were doing for cheer and the way that maybe they taught you about nutrition, or you guys focused on nutrition, maybe you didn't focus on it at all, to then what you actually learned when you started researching it?
Yeah, so with cheer, we didn't really, we would go to the weight room, but like nobody really took it that seriously. And we would do like stations and things like that. So it was very like what you would expect if you went to just like a class. So a lot of jumping and like conditioning movements, I would call it. We weren't strength training. And so that was the difference when I started actually lifting, like learning like, oh, let's not just push as much weight as we possibly can. Let's make sure that your form's good. Let's make sure that you're actually performing things correctly. How's your programming? Are you putting things or like performing movements in the right order that you're supposed to be? And so there's all these different things that I had no idea about. Like, I didn't know that a shoulder had 3 different parts, shoulder to shoulder. Or I didn't understand that, you weren't supposed to feel squats in only your quads, and that I have really bad knees. So my knees would kill when I was doing squats because I was doing them so poorly. And all anybody ever told me was, oh, that was good. Put more weight on it. And so I had to kind of go back and change all of my habits. Literally, when I started working with my coach, we dropped everything, started from scratch. He didn't want me squatting unless I was with him for a while because he wanted to make sure I was doing it correctly and I was getting better habits. Like, I completely wiped the slate clean and started over.
Wow, that's really awesome. And I know that you because you started out not knowing much about nutrition and you actually had struggled a bit with binging and restricting, and I appreciate that you see the value in the work that I do. That meant a lot to me in the little for what you said. So I just want to say thank you for that. And I'm curious, like, you had written that you actually were at this point of taking sleeping pills to keep yourself from being awake so you wouldn't spend that time eating. How did this manifest over time or progress for you?
Yeah, so I went through a rough period when this was actually when I was in high school. So I remember being in about 10th grade when things started just like, I back then too, like having no knowledge of nutrition is what did it for me, because I was running like crazy all the time, thinking that's the only way to lose weight. And I had no concept of, you know, just nutrition in general. So what I would think is like, oh, I want to look skinny in this shirt I'm going to wear out on Friday night. So I'm just not going to eat because then I'll look skinnier and not have my stomach all pushed out. So instead of thinking like on a, you know, a health standpoint, I just didn't eat. Instead of thinking like, oh, what foods could I eat that are healthier to replace with the bad things? Nope, just stop eating. And I had no idea of the damage I was doing to my body. And then, like I said, like I would do things like say me and my friends we were going to go out on Saturday night. So like Friday, I would like take something to make me just nap all day. So then I wouldn't be awake all day, and then I wouldn't eat. And then I would wake up and go out, and I didn't eat all day. So then I quote unquote looked skinny. Which is absolutely terrible. I mean, it's not like I didn't do, like, it wasn't like a long-term thing. I didn't do that kind of thing once I got into college, and I don't know what it was that kind of made that stop or what made me stop. I just remember reflecting back and be like, wow, like, imagine if our education system taught these things, like taught what proper nutrition is and how to really exercise and take care of your body. I don't think I ever would have been in that position.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that they don't teach you this. They don't give you these tools to, especially for women, like when you're, going through that high school stage, like you care so much about what other people think. And all I cared about was being skinny and fitting in, especially from where I'm from. Like, I'm half Black. There was like 3 other people in my entire grade and, maybe 20 people of color in my whole school. So I always felt like I was different and I wanted to fit in with everybody. And so I would go through these extremes to try to be like them.
I was thinking about that a lot, actually, because you had posed that question of how do we help people from a young age rather than just when they've grown up and they've already been through so much, and instead how can we reach them and target them with basically like body positivity or acceptance or body confidence and relationship with food, like tools for that at a young age before they get to the point where they really need help with it. And as I was reflecting on this, I thought, especially in the education that I've received and the work that I've done with different people, not different, but lots of different people on this, many of the issues stem from beliefs. And it's not so much just about our bodies, right? But it's how we think about them and react to them, which can be influenced by societal standards, conditioning, upbringing, cultural values, environment, like you said, and then all these other variables. And a lot of times people go to this immediate thought of, well, if we just had seminars for them or workshops for them, or we went into the schools and we did this, I think it would be so beneficial, like you said, to have classes around nutrition and proper nutrition and how it's important to fuel the body. And that's because diet culture is in everything. So if we can even address that standard slightly, that would be great. But at the same time, body standards are seen everywhere, whether it's being too this or too that, or not enough this or not enough that, or being ashamed. Even the body positivity movement or other anti-diet culture groups shame people who don't meet their standards either. So it's crazy. And I think the best thing we could do is just be mindful of the things we post and promote and stand for, and who we allow to influence, and like what influence and power we give them, and like thinking of the trends on social media, and are they promoting negative thoughts about body or hyper focus on diet, and what's being said by teachers at school every day, or in the homes of children. Because if we don't address the adults, or the adults don't actually get help, or maybe, the kids learn this new lesson in school or learn this thing on social media from their favorite influencer who's actually very body positive and teaches about, nutrition and balance and whatever. But then the adults still subscribe to the diet mentality or the body image degradation, then the child's going to still be impacted even more strongly by, like their main source of influence, like their parent, their guardian, their caretakers, more than like a TikTok video or a social media influencer. So like, what do you think
Yeah.
about how do you actually go in and influence them? Or can you think of like when you were in high school, what do you think really influenced the way you thought about your body?
For me, I think I just looked at, you know, it wasn't so, I mean, social media, like Instagram wasn't a thing. Facebook had yeah, Facebook was around, but it wasn't so much like the social media influence at all. It was just like the people that I was around. Like, like I had said, like I was trying so hard to fit in with a group of people that I was just like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to look like, or this is how I'm supposed to dress, or this is what my hair should look like. It was more just like, I just want to feel accepted by this group of people that I'm, surrounded by. And I mean, it's not even that like when I think back, yes, I cared about what they thought about me, but I also I was always not a loner, but like I kind of was friends with all the different groups. Like my high school wasn't super, super clingy. I mean, everybody obviously had their friend groups, but it wasn't like, oh, these are the jocks and the popular kids and the whatever. Our school was kind of separated a little bit by sports. And so I was a dancer and I also cheered. And so, I hung out with a lot of really tall, skinny girls just because that was their body type based on our sports we were playing. But I wasn't like that at all. I was bottom heavy with thick arms. And I always, was like, I don't want to say people were mean to me. They were not mean to me. They were just, people would make little comments that were like, I don't think they understood what they were really saying. And it was those little comments that would like make me feel very insecure. So I always mention this one because I think this is the one that I remember the most, is that this girl was a good friend of mine. And I know she didn't mean any harm when she said this, but she said in front of a very big group of my peers, that I was really pretty for a Black girl. And I remember that sticking in my head forever. Forever that stuck in my head.
Wow.
And I just remember not feeling like, I tried so hard to be a part of this group. And when she said that, I was like, I'm never going to be one of you. And I don't know why, like to this day, I'm really happy those things happened to me though.
Yes.
Very happy about those things happening to me because they made me think a lot differently at a younger age.
Like about yourself or about your choices or?
Well, I think just feeling insecure about those things at a young age, I knew I felt those ways. I was like, how do I get over this thing? And so it really made me dive deep to figure out, okay, who am I? And how do I want to present myself and how do I want to be? And I feel like a lot of people, it takes them longer to get to that point. Yeah. So I always kind of felt like I was a little bit ahead of the game because of that.
Totally. I had similar experiences with regard to like kind of being put in situations where I felt like I needed to ask those deeper questions that maybe others hadn't considered yet. Where I felt very disconnected or like an outcast from my social group. And I was interested in things that they weren't interested in and pursuing things that they were not even thinking about yet. And I think that going through all of that and, being called things based on my body or shouted out across the school for that, I was like you, friends with pretty much everybody, but I felt my close friends group was strong for a little bit, and then it felt like it dwindled. And I didn't have that many people I felt I could truly trust or rely on, or maybe like no one was as good of a friend to me as I was willing to be for them, kind of a thing. Maybe that sounds wrong, but that is truly what I felt like. And actually going through that helped me to become who I am now and have deeper experiences and have deeper thought patterns too. And I'm so grateful for all of that, like you said, it's a positive thing that you went through that because it helped you to be where you are now. And I'm actually, one thing you said that stood out to me was how you would ask yourself, like, how do I want to be? And who do I want to be? So you actually mentioned too that when you got into competing, it really saved you from a lifestyle you didn't want. And we talked a bit about that. And you didn't know much about nutrition, but I'm curious about what things came from committing to that sport, to bodybuilding, that helped you to mend or maybe improve your relationship with your body or with food.
So when it comes to, well, first of all, when it comes to food, I was very scared of food for a long time because, and I think it's just because I knew nothing about it. Just like, people are scared of the things they don't know. And so I knew that certain foods made you fat, but I didn't know. I mean, I knew, yeah, sugar makes you fat, pop, things like that, but I didn't understand, but how do you eat without getting fat, basically? What, am I supposed to just eat broccoli every day? Like, that's kind of what I was thinking, or, fish, whatever. And so when I learned about nutrition and I knew, how to, fuel myself properly in addition to my training, I realized, like, oh, I don't need to starve myself. I don't need to eat tilapia and asparagus every day. I can, still go and enjoy myself and have, some cheesecake or something on the weekends, and I'm not going to get fat. Those type of things it was so freeing to finally be able to learn how to properly take care of myself. And that's why I got into coaching, because I'm like, this is life changing. Like when you understand the concepts that go into, just knowing how to properly care for yourself. Like that's literally what it is. When you know how to pick out foods and to properly fuel yourself, that's caring for yourself. And it's sad that we don't teach that in our society. Like that is you eat every day, all day. Why are we not teaching people how to do it the right way? It doesn't make sense to me. And it was so freeing to figure that out. And when I see that in my clients now, and they message me all these different things that, they're starting to do these like macro-friendly recipes, and they're like, wow, I love this food and I found this healthy way to make it. Or even just, I went out this weekend and I was able to, I picked out this, healthy dinner so I could have dessert, and, I didn't feel like crap and I felt good. And like seeing those kind of things, I'm like, yes, because I remember what that felt like and how good that felt.
It's really freeing to detach ourselves from things that we like learned, from people in our life's behavior or societal behaviors or the cultures that we're immersed in, and instead learn how do we best love ourselves. And there's this quote that I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's something like, if you want to love yourself, start with your next meal. And I think that's so powerful because I truly am a believer that everything's about intention. I think there's nothing wrong with having like chocolate or fast food or these other things that people deem as unhealthy, but it's a matter of the intention behind it and the intention going into it, and not treating certain foods differently than other foods. And instead, just allowing yourself to live the lifestyle that you truly believe you can sustain long term. And I love that you took something that was really empowering for you and freeing for you, and now you're able to give that to others. And you've talked about how serious of a foodie you are as well, and how you like to enjoy yourself, especially when you're given the opportunity to, like in the holidays or on vacation. And a lot of people are afraid to loosen the reins a bit, which, especially competitors, which, usually ends up leading to the very thing they were trying to avoid, which was a binge or overeating or complete loss of control. So how do you think, or maybe what has your experience been in allowing yourself to enjoy unrestricted in times like a celebration, vacation, holiday, that actually helped or supported you in your long-term success post-show or in preps?
Well, I went through, so after my first prep, that first, after my first show, I remember it being show day when I learned about what a reverse diet was. I had no idea that I couldn't just go back to my normal life. And I remember it like blowing my mind. And I was like, oh, but like, oh, that's pretty crazy. But at the same time, I was like, okay, like I got this. And I didn't realize how hard that was going to be. So that show was in June. I don't remember. I mean, I didn't gain weight super, super quickly, but I put on about 20 pounds after that within, it's probably like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So still, it's quick. And I just remember, and especially me, so with my body type, I'm only 5'3", and back then my stage weight was like 100 pounds. And so putting on 20 pounds, it looked like a lot more than 20 pounds too. And I tend to hold my weight like on my lower back and my lower midsection in addition to my butt and legs. Mm-hmm. And so I remember spending that entire summer in baggy shorts and a t-shirt. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to go out and do anything. I just kept picking up shifts every single weekend. So then I would have an excuse not to go to the beach and be in a swimsuit. And like after that year, after starting prep again, I was like, I'm not going to do that to myself again. And it wasn't that I did it. It wasn't that putting on the 20 pounds was bad. It wasn't the weight that did it. It was how I did it. I had such an emotional connection to food after that show that I knew I had that guilt. So anytime I would eat something, I felt terrible guilt about it. And then I would just eat more. And then, even more guilt and so on and so on. And that would just continue. And so I had to figure out how to get rid of that emotional tie to food. And I think when I really figured out, like, I had to really sit down with myself and be like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you actually competing? Yeah, I really enjoy it. But some people don't like when I say this, but loving competing isn't your why. Like, there's got to be something more to it. Mm-hmm. Because it's not fun all the time. You sacrifice a lot. It's expensive and you get a plastic trophy out of it. So you can't tell me that just loving it is your only reason why. There's got to be something deeper. And I had to figure out what that was for me. And for me, I realized that the change in myself that I saw when I started competing, I loved who I was becoming. And I found that the more invested I became in it and the more I kept learning about different aspects of competing and just health, fitness, training, all of it, I started to love myself more and more. And it had nothing really to do with competing. It was the person I was becoming while I was doing it. Yes. And so kind of lost my train of thought there. So after that first year, and like I said, and I was going through all the emotional, attachment to food, I was able to break away with that because, like, again, I was learning and I was acquiring all this knowledge about, just the industry and everything about it. And having that, I was able to just disconnect from it and realize that, one treat's not going to sabotage my progress or, completely throw everything out the window. But telling myself, no, you can't have that. No, you can't do that. And then eating 20 times as much later, that will hurt you. Exactly. And so being able to just reflect on those two things and to think, you have option A or you have option B. You really want that chocolate right now? So like the situation I'm in, I mean, it's obviously different if you're in prep or, off season, mm-hmm. But say it's off season, you really want that chocolate. I really shouldn't have it. Okay, maybe I'll just have this much of it. Sure, I'm going to do that because it's better than, not just telling myself, no, you can't have that. No, you can't have that. And then later on eating an entire cheesecake in the bathroom or something.
Yeah. No, those are real situations. And I mean, as you know, that's what I'm so passionate about in this industry, about changing. But it's something that I love that you've brought up in the way you've brought up, because something I talk about all the time is this one question that really helped to begin changing my relationship with food, which is, would you rather have one now or 10 later? And that helped me really put things in perspective for myself, because I noticed that was a pattern. It was like, oh, you can't have any, you can't have any, you can't have any. And then it was like, well, now I must have all of it, and I'll eat all of it until it's gone, and then it won't bother me anymore. Or I'm going to eat it in the garage in peace and quiet, and no one can judge me for it, or no one will know. And it was like, whoa, what am I doing? Like, what is actually going on? And of course, from a psychological perspective, restriction is going to breed fixation, which is going to breed this intense urge and usually lead to the eventual overeating or emotional outburst of some sort of behavior. And usually the behavior we've been restricting from. So I think it's really important for girls to hear and understand that, one, you're not a lost cause. If you are going through that, you're definitely not a lost cause. You can get through it. And two, this is someone, so I'm referring to you now, Rihanna, but like this, like you are someone who is a professional athlete, and you have had to go through this, and you've had to mend that relationship so that you could come out on the other side even stronger. And that's something that I think girls lose the disconnect, or have a disconnect with, is it's like, if I restrict myself from this treat now, then I'll become Miss Bikini Olympia tomorrow. When in reality, it's like, if you allow yourself to develop some level of sustainability and longevity in the sport, then that potential, that goal actually becomes more of a realistic goal, rather than something that seems far-fetched, or like it'll only happen if I restrict and if I'm miserable now. Well, what if it could be easier because you actually allowed yourself to live a lifestyle that was sustainable? You know, I'm a big believer in having empowering and fulfilling preps and improvement seasons, because at the end of the day, that's what keeps us from the yo-yo dieting. That's what keeps us from the rebounding.
Exactly. And prep and off season are completely different. I feel like you don't hear nearly as often people struggling with that in prep, because it's like, I'm in my prep, I just know that's not on my plan. I just can't have it. And when you're actively working towards the stage, it's way different. It's completely different. But you have to understand, like, competing long term. You know what I mean? It's not really off when you're in off season. Like, if you want to go somewhere, you still got to be working towards that. And so, like, even this past weekend, like, I'm not on, like, quote unquote on prep right now. I'm just like maintaining where I'm at, because who knows at this point when the stage is going to return. So we're just sticking with where we are. And so I had a couple of drinks this weekend. Coach is totally okay with that. He knows. I tell him every single thing in my check-ins, yada, yada. And I had posted like a picture of something on Instagram, and someone was like, oh my God, you drank, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of like were like shocked that I was having a drink and stuff. And I'm like, well, this for me is my balance. Like, I have my goals. I'm working toward my goals. This isn't going to deter me. Having one drink is not going to completely deter me. I'm in a spot in my, on my journey right now, on my way to the stage, where this is acceptable. This is all right. I'm not hiding something. I'm not binging something. It's part of my balance. I'm having a drink. Like, I feel like having that all or nothing mentality can be dangerous for some people. It really can be dangerous sometimes when people think, or they tell themselves all the time, I can't, instead of figuring out, that it is okay sometimes. Within reason, there needs to be certain times. I don't drink on prep. I'm not going to drink when I'm 2 weeks out from a show or something like that. But everything has a time and a place, and it is okay for those things.
Yes. And there's a reason for every decision we make, and becoming aware of what that reason is can help us to be present with it. And therefore, when we're present with it, we're more mindful, and we make more conscious choices. And a more conscious choice is one that likely won't lead to guilt, frustration, shame, etc. And it's interesting that you had that experience with someone messaging you that, because I think that helps to really solidify this very clear point within the industry, specifically of this this all or nothing mentality is like promoted as something that everyone should pride themselves with. I did for a long time, that was something that I really did, and I was like, I'm all or nothing, and and I took so much pride in it, like I was supposedly better for it. Man, that set me back so bad when I rebounded my first show. Man, that set me back so bad when I tried to maintain that for so long. And it's like, I'm not weak because I couldn't. I'm stronger because I recognize that, you know, and I'm a better athlete because I recognize that. And I believe that the ones who are in this for the long run are the ones who have learned how do you develop and turn this into a lifestyle. Not just, oh, I love this lifestyle and I love bodybuilding. Like you were saying, going back to like, what's your real reason why? Letting that drive your decision making, because the rest is so surface level. It won't last for very long. But when your decisions are coming from deep internal places and desires, then it's going to feel so much better. And not subscribing to the identities, like a lot of the work that I do with people is on identity. But like, you know, if you go into this bikini competitor identity and you associate that identity with definitions like all or nothing, 100% or nothing at all, then of course your actions are going to align with that, where you're going to be in prep at 110%. And then as soon as you're not in prep, okay, now it's the nothing mentality. What if you went in knowing that it was always enjoyable and always something you could commit to and balance? You know, so I think those identities are so dangerous to overcommit to and attach to. And if we just create our own definitions, it would be that much better. Like you have, this is my definition of balance.
And it's completely changed how, not only how I prep and how my off seasons go, but I've been able to like look at that and put it into my entire life as well. Like one of the biggest things, like biggest challenge I actually recently experienced was a negative outcome at work. So like in school, like I was a 4.0 all the time, like summa cum laude, undergrad, grad school, top of my class, like, and then I had a report for work and I made an error. And, you know, when you're working with thousands and thousands of entries of data, like you're bound to make mistakes. But wow, did that not hit my ego, like big time. Like I was so upset. And of course, first thing I do is call my mom after work, because that's just what we do, is call mom.
Yep.
But oh my gosh. But, you know, she knows how I feel competing. She's seen me go through all this, and she reminded me, and of course she just relates it back to competing because she knows that's how it's going to get into my head. Like you're not bad at your job because you made a mistake. You're not, you know, they're not going to fire you. The world's not over. You're going to go back to work tomorrow and you're going to pick up from where you left off. You're going to learn from that and you're going to pick up and your life's going to go on. And I was like, oh, you know what? That makes a whole lot of sense. And it's crazy because we do that with competing or just life in general all the time. It's like something goes wrong, or, you know, like this has to be 100% all the time, or else I just don't want to do it, or I want nothing to do with it. And that's so dangerous. Like rather, it sets you back so far, when really it's just like, okay, reflect on that moment, reflect on what just happened, and move on. And I couldn't do that for so long. So long it took me to get that into my head. And even when that incident just happened, like it still took someone saying something for me to realize that it was the exact same thing.
Yeah, it really is. It's like that perfectionist type A thing. It goes back to like what we were talking about before with like the watch Netflix today and you'll be set up for more success tomorrow. You know, it's like
exactly.
Doesn't mean you're Netflaholic, but you are okay with it every once in a while when you want to. And it's okay to say no, it's okay to step back and set some boundaries. And I think that there are so many parallels in bodybuilding. That's actually one of the things I love most about bodybuilding, is how translatable it is to life, and how often I notice that my habits as a bodybuilder end up complementing as well as strengthening habits in other areas of my life. And I just think it's really cool to also hear your experience with that and how you've been able to find and draw those connections, and that you still are drawing those connections. And everyone's always going to continue to learn and grow. Like we're never, you know, I guess perfect. Actually, you said this earlier, you don't actually believe in full recovery, which I think is interesting. Do you believe that that applies in other things with life as well?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And, you know, especially social media being so prominent, like we just tend to think all these people are just so perfect all the time. And, you know, we know it's a highlight reel, yet we let it get in our head anyway. And I do it all the time, and I have to step back and be like, okay, they're sitting on their phone doing the same thing you do, spending an hour on this post, an hour picking out a dang picture and doing whatever filters. They're doing the exact same thing you are. So why are you sitting here and let it get in your head?
Mm-hmm. Good point. Again, reconnect with the reality of the situations that we're in. And, I actually am curious about a little bit more about your experience with the weight gain. And I love what you said about how it wasn't the weight gain that bothered you, it was the behaviors that led to it. And I think that that's such an important golden nugget to get out of this episode, is that a lot of times it's not like the weight, the thing that we associate with the negative feelings is not actually the reason for the negative feelings. It's the beliefs around them. And you actually discovered that despite swearing you would never go up to 20 pounds plus over stage weight again, you actually function better at that place. This was something you recently pointed out. So can you explain to us how focusing on your long-term goals has actually helped you to release the need to be shredded or stage lean all the time?
Well, I think one thing that I think does make it different for me, and for people who are in situations similar to mine, is this is not my career. So I understand that a lot of people they feel a lot more pressure to be stage lean and super ripped all the time because, they're a coach or they're a trainer or they're, an influencer, a YouTuber, that kind of thing. So it's more their identity than anything. But for me, I identify, yes, as a bikini competitor, but it's my side hobby. It is not my entire life. So I mean, there is a difference there, I think, and I can't speak on the other half.
Right.
But for me, I noticed way different things about myself when I was at this weight. Like just in general, just having, more energy, having a better attitude, things like that. Like it wasn't fair to other people, or for my boyfriend example, for me being tired all the time and not wanting to go do anything, not wanting to, even just go on a walk or something because I already did all my cardio and I already got my steps, and now I'm going to sit on the couch and do nothing, or just being able to live our normal life like that. After that first year when I started gaining that weight, didn't want to do anything, and then going through, when I was going through my pro card, I was in prep for 11 months. So that whole year basically was just prep, and, it wasn't fair. And after having that year off, I valued that time so much more. Mm-hmm. And I realized that there's a time and there's a place for both of them. And for me, I figured out kind of where my, where my set point was, where I felt good. And that's not the same for everybody. I mean, so many people need to get it out of their head that 5 pounds above your stage weight is where you're supposed to stay. It's not for everybody. And especially I didn't get my period back until I gained 25 pounds. Yeah. I did it super slow. It took me 6 months to get to that place, but that's where I ended up. And that's when I finally, felt normal again.
I love the way that you put that too in reference to other people, like what's fair, especially the ones that you love. And then I also like how you brought up the different contrasts, like what taking time off actually allowed you to, or how taking time off allowed you to shift your perspective and value actually both phases even more. And I had a similar experience. Like when I took time off, I felt like I valued that time more and I valued prep more. And so I think that can work wonders. And I think it's funny you brought up you don't need to be 5 pounds above stage weight, because I had written down, I was like, okay, I want to ask her opinion on athletes and coaches promoting, staying within a certain amount of pounds of stage weight. And I've talked about it on the show before, but I'd love to hear your opinion on that, maybe expanded. I know you said we need to get away from that mentality, but what's your opinion on the promotion of it?
It really depends on how they're promoting it too. Mm-hmm. So there's so many factors that play into it, and it's between the athlete and their coach. And they need to look at a bunch of different factors, such as what stressors are going on in their life, and where do they perform best in the gym, where do their joints feel the best, and they're lifting the most and they're the strongest and they're recovering well, where is it that they do get their menstrual cycle back, and just in general overall health. Like, there's so many factors that play into where your set point is. For me, 5 pounds above my stage weight, if I stayed there, I guarantee you that after, I can't put a date on it, but after so long, things would not be good for me. I would start getting moody. I guarantee I would. And I would be low energy. I wouldn't be strong in the gym. So that would make me upset. Like, that's why I don't really agree with them promoting that. But then again, I think they need to consider going back to like how the weight is gained, because there's a difference in gaining, 20 pounds in 2-3 weeks and doing it over 6 months. Like, there's a huge difference.
Yes.
And it's not just looking at that single number. There's so many things you need to look into. And that's why it's between you and your coach. And I think that's why it's another reason to, trust the person that you're working with to know how to help you find that set point.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that a lot. It's almost insensible to be like, or maybe even unrealistic to be like, hey, you should stay within this amount of stage 8, when it's like you literally have no idea what other variables and factors are playing a role in any given competitor's goals or life at that time.
Yeah, even this past off season. So when I turned pro, my stage weight was about 105 pounds. Well, I gained weight really slowly. It was less than a pound a week. I did have a breast augmentation, so I gained a little bit quicker, like right after that, just because I could be active and things like that. But man, I got up to 136 pounds. And I just remember being like, holy crap, that's a lot of weight, and like freaking out about it. But the thing is, I trusted my coach, and I'm like, he's not concerned about it. He's happy with where we're at. And then when I was just about stage lean this year, I was up to 117 pounds. And so you're looking at that number, but I did it slow. I did it the right way. I didn't put on 30 pounds of fat. But in your head, all I cared about was, I'm so much higher above my old stage weight number. That's the only thing that was going through my head. And, like those stupid little numbers, like we need to stop paying attention to them. We say that, but we all do it.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, because you need those metrics. At the same time, it's so hard to sometimes just like push them aside and ignore it.
Right. I think the best way to do that is like neutralize it. No celebration of lower numbers and no negative reaction or I guess punishment for a higher number. Like, if we celebrate consistently low weigh-ins, which most of the times that happens in prep, is it's like, good job, keep it up, or everyone's like, wow, you look so much leaner, so we're getting reinforced for dropping weight. Positive reinforcement then leads to like those feel good, so then when that stops happening, we think it's really bad. So I think neutralizing it can be really helpful, but I still struggle with it too. And it's like, when I notice I'm struggling with it more, I just pay attention to what was I focusing on that week, or what was I like kind of spending my energy on, or why was I so concerned about it? And that helps me to I guess unveil the underlying negative beliefs or limiting beliefs that had either resurfaced or hadn't been addressed yet around weight or around my body.
And I don't know who posted this, but I saw a long time ago, probably like a year or so ago, someone had posted how she would take her check-in pictures, do her measurements, like look at them really closely and everything before she would step on the scale and look at her weight. And I do that all the time now, because I look at my picture and be like, damn, I look good. My tires are coming in. My waist looks tight. And then if I step on the scale and the scale's up a pound now, like, whatever. I don't care. Look at these pictures. They look good. So I don't care, But if I do it the other way around, even though I look at the pictures after, I'm like, oh, but I look good at my pictures, it still kind of hits a little differently. So I always do it that way.
It makes such a big difference, because if there is any sort of attachment to the number or any sort of expectation, whether it was to be higher or lower, it's going to influence the way we see the photo. That's why so many of us can look back on like prep files and be like, damn, I thought I wasn't lean enough then. But it's like that was probably just because there was some over obsession with maybe others who were leaner or a time when we were lighter, whatever. So I agree, disconnecting from the number, at least doing something else first. I like to recognize all my wins from the past week before I do any sort of check-in. And when I reflect on that, then I'm like, well, then I know I did everything I could. So whatever the number is, it shouldn't matter. And my coach is always like, the number doesn't matter. If it goes up, cool. If it goes down, cool. It's about like, he's going to take care of it at the end of the day. He's writing the plan. I'm following it.
Exactly. If you're doing what you need to do, then like, what's the point in stressing? That's why you have a coach. That's their job to stress about it. You just do what you need to do. Just execute and let them take care of everything else. I can't imagine coaching myself.
No.
It is also why, like, when my clients will write in their check-ins, they'll be like, "Oh, my weight didn't drop this week." I like make a point to like point out all the great things in their check-in, like just so they know, like, that number does not matter. These are the things that I care about and that I'm looking at. You hit your numbers this week. You trained, or you got in all your training sessions. You did your cardio. You got all your water in. Like, those are the wins. We don't care about the scale number. That's just a background metric.
Yeah, let's celebrate the habits, the things that we can celebrate. And I mean, we've come so far. I feel like as a people, when you commit to your lifestyle changing, we need to give ourselves more credit for that. It's just such a massive transformation on so many levels. You're changing your habits, you're changing your patterns day to day, the behaviors you have, to the point where people around you also have to adjust. So there's a lot of changes happening. A number on the scale seems arbitrary when you think about all those other moving parts and pieces.
It really is. It really is.
And everyone always says it, but it's not like the judges are taking your weight before they award a pro card.
Exactly. Like, the only time to tell myself that, and that's the thing, like, we tell ourselves these things all the time, but we really need to let it get it into our head. And so that's one of my things too. Like, when I'm looking at my check-in pictures before I step on the scale, like, that's one of the thoughts that goes through my head too. Like, they don't care. They really don't care.
Yeah. Exactly. So actually, what are you doing now to prepare for your pro debut? I mean, I know obviously it's been postponed and canceled and everything's up in the air. And you said you're not really in, like, I guess, full prep mode, but more of a comfortable, like, holding place. But what was your goal going into this season?
Yeah, so I had 4 shows planned, and it actually ended up being totally perfect. So Minnesota has never had a pro show, and so they were having their first pro show this year, and so that was going to be my debut, which is going to be awesome because, like, all my family, everyone is going to be there. And then all this happened. So I was doing Minneapolis, I was going to do Mile High, Battle of the Falls, and New York Pro, and so they all got canceled. And so now I'm, maintaining at the same weight I was 3 weeks out when everything got canceled. My food's way up though. I get a cheat meal every week. Like I said, like, my coach is okay, like, being a little bit more free with myself because he knows that I'm not going to go crazy because I still have that prep mentality and, I'm still on point. So as long as everything goes fine, he's okay with me being a little bit more flexible with everything. But we're aiming more towards shows in September is what I'm hoping for right now. Because there's a lot of shows that are still scheduled for August. So I want to see when it gets closer, I want to see that those shows are still going on before I start, like, buying more plane tickets and everything and doing all of that. So especially with work, I don't want to keep, like, requesting off all these dates and then canceling and then redoing it all over. So that's the goal. So that's about 15 weeks out then from that first show. And so we'll probably, start like a strict prep again here and at like 10 weeks out.
Yeah, and you'll have a better idea too, like, if those shows are gonna stick around and keep going. And I love how your approach has been adjusted, but like you said earlier, you're still living the lifestyle, and I'm excited for you. I think it's gonna be awesome to see you make your pro debut. I feel more connected to you now that we've actually talked as well, so I'm excited to cheer you on.
Well, thank you. And I'm pretty sure, I thought I heard you said that you were going to be doing the Mile High, or there's a different show that I thought about doing.
That was Anya, I believe. Maybe you're thinking of Anya, but I had planned on doing muscle contest shows. Actually, the first one was going to be Grand Prix, and then it was going to be Battle in the Desert, which was a Spectrum show. Man, I'd love to go to Colorado. That I actually had plans to go to Colorado with my boyfriend. We had to cancel them. I was so sad.
Me too. Well, I was still gonna go out there. My best friend lives out there, so like even though the show was canceled, I thought about still going. But then
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to fly with all this going on. And I don't want to take off work. I want to save my PTO for competing. So I just
Yeah.
canceled everything. But it is what it is. Yeah, I love it out there though. But I've actually never been more west than Colorado, so I really want to do more shows out in like California and Arizona come,
Yes.
fall and into next year, just to go and see that part.
Oh my gosh, come out to California. If you competed at Iron Games, it's like that bikini show is unreal. I mean, I don't know how you feel about like that big of shows, but like that's a huge like pro bikini show.
Oh, I was thinking about that one. Did they? I don't remember if that one got rescheduled or not, or like when they usually have that one.
Yeah, it's usually in November.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but anyway, either way, definitely come to California and compete. I mean, obviously that's the only place I've ever competed, and I'd love to go to Colorado. I'd love to go. Actually, I've competed in Vegas too. Vegas doesn't feel like another state because you just drive a little bit, but yeah, no, it's fun. That's the good thing about competing is you can travel, and that's also why a lot of this stuff is up in the air for so many of us, huh?
I'll have to look into that one though, because that would be fun. And I do want to do I want to do a mix of, like medium-sized shows. Like the Minneapolis Open did get rescheduled for October, so I plan on doing that one.
Oh.
But I do want to do some bigger ones, like Pittsburgh, New York Pro. Like I want to be up there with the best and see how I compare. So that's the plan.
Yeah, especially with your goals of stepping on the Olympia stage. That would be huge.
Oh yeah, and then get in front of those judges, get some really solid feedback. I want to really switch up the different judges that I get in front of, and get as much different opinions about everything as I can.
I love that. That's a really great approach to it. And I know a lot of girls have said that their strategy matters and getting in front of different judges does matter a lot. And I think that that's true for NPC competitors heading into nationals as well. And I'd love to hear your best advice for girls who have never competed but are thinking about it, and then your best advice for girls who are on their road to pro.
For okay. So for girls who've never, or anybody really who's never competed, I would say, reaching out to Celeste first and figuring out, making sure you have a good relationship with food first. Like even I had a client, I don't coach competitors. I definitely think I need to get a lot more experience just coaching lifestyle before I move on to that. But I think, I had a client who mentioned that she was interested in doing something like that. And we had talked about, doing almost like a mock prep type thing, like a shorter version of a prep, and just to, see how she would manage something like that, because I think a lot of people go into it and they don't understand the mental impact that it can have if you're not prepared for it. And so I think it's really important that girls really think about that before they get into it, because, once you do a prep, like you have to go through that coming out of it. Like there's no other option. And for someone looking to go pro, I would say work smarter, not harder, because there's so, like we were talking about earlier, like we live in this like hard grind culture, and that's great. It's good to work hard. Like nothing's going to work unless you do, but there is an efficient way to do everything. And it's not always like big, dirty, like down, getting into it, ways
Mm-hmm.
of doing everything. Like really think about what you're doing and figuring out, is this the smartest way to do it? And you're going to get to where you need to be way faster that way.
I love that advice. And I so appreciate everything that you've brought to the table today and the conversation we've had. I mean, we've covered a lot of different things. I was thinking damn, what am I going to title this? Because we've talked about so many different really beneficial and helpful things. And I appreciate you taking the time so much to share. And I want others to be able to appreciate you as well. So can you share maybe your Instagram handle or where people can connect with you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, it's just my first name. So it's Reijuana, spelled really weird. It's REIJUANA _IFBB Pro. I don't really use other social media very much, but then I also do have links for my posing and coaching in my bio on Instagram.
Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put your Instagram link in the show notes page along with the link that you have in your bio. I'll put that on the show notes page too. So you guys can have direct access to that as well and get in touch with her and, just connect as well even further. So that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you look at the category section, you'll be able to find her there. Or of course, if you're listening to this right away, her episode will be at the very top of that blog page. So thank you guys so much for tuning in again. And Reijuana, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me to come on. I had such a good time.
Oh,
Literally,
good.
such an easy conversation. I feel like it just flowed so well.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you feel that way, and I appreciate you. And to everybody listening, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening